Hey, it's Marthea Pitts, the MSW coach, and I want to talk to you. I want to share with you today 3 beliefs keeping you stuck in low quality jobs. I was talking to a coaching client, she's a former coaching client of mine. Hey, how you doing? She attended like webinars and workshops, but she was never in my full program. But either way, I was talking to her the other day and we were discussing some things. Hey, Social Work Collection. Hey, Lady Freeman. Hey, Palu. I think that's how I pronounce it. I was talking to this person. Again, she wasn't in my full group coaching program, but she's attended a lot of my workshops and webinars. And we were talking about something the other day. We were strategizing on something that she's working on. And she made this statement about the specific industry that she's targeting. And I immediately, like, the minute she said it, I was like, that's not true, right? And so it made me want to come to you all today and talk about 3 beliefs and this is just 3. This ain't the full list. There's a lot more, but 3 beliefs or 3 misconceptions that I commonly see that social workers have that is actually keeping you stuck in low quality social work jobs. Okay. So, again, the impetus for this conversation was the conversation I had with a person the other day, and she made this broad statement around like the hiring practices of this specific industry. And I'm like, that's not true. You could have applied for that a long time ago, because I know that when people have these beliefs, these misconceptions, it causes them to not apply. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about it. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is a term. I like to come on now and give you all a term to describe this phenomenon that I'm describing, so you know that it's a real thing. So the term today is going to be job judgment confusion, and I'm looking at my notes. See, I'm organized. When I come with my notes, I didn't come to play with y'all today, okay? So job judgment confusion. Job judgment confusion is what happens when you've worked in, and this is my definition in the beginning, is what happens when you've worked in survival mode jobs for so long that your internal sense of what's a good opportunity as far as a job is severely like clouded. In plain language, you start thinking that anything that feels too good or seems too good to be true on paper is fake or is not real. It's not a real job opportunity. Now, this should not be confused with the fact that there are job scams out there. I'm not talking about like those scammy job posts where they're telling you to send them $50 or send them money and they'll send you equipment. You know, all of the types of things we probably at one time fell prey to as very new people in the workforce, probably straight out of high school. I'm not talking about those. When I say they don't feel real, these typically for my coaching clients before they start working with me are what I call scary jobs. So these are jobs with large sounding job titles that may be super aligned with the population and issue that you want your work to support. Maybe they have very generous salary packages and benefit packages, or maybe it's like all of the things that you've ever wished you could have in the job in one, and you're like, it's no way that's real, or there's no way they are really wanting to hire someone. They already know who they want to hire for that job, or there's no way I will qualify for that. I'm talking about those jobs, the scary jobs, right? So what I want to say first is that job judgment confusion arises, this is the formal definition, arises when individuals struggle to assess situations, make decisions, or evaluate their career paths effectively. How I'm using that term tonight is what I've noticed over the last almost 6 years, and even before getting on the internet and publicly working with social workers, because I did that behind the scenes even before starting the MSW coaches. What I noticed is that a lot of the job judgment confusion that people experience is derived out of the fact that you are largely coming from a lot of low quality jobs, right? So jobs that pay you little or nothing, jobs that run you into the ground, jobs that require you to be everything short of God, where you're doing everything under the sun. Because you come from this background where you've been paid literally or you're being just overworked to the point of no return, or maybe even you're experiencing a situation where you're severely over-credentialed, right? A lot of social workers are over-credentialed. Over-credentialed is where you have multiple master's degrees, multiple bachelor's degrees, multiple credentials. I always say you have a lot of letters after your name. However, you're in a job that is geared just for a social service worker, or only requires you to have a bachelor's degree, right? That is a situation where you're severely over-credentialed. Job judgment confusion happens when you come from a mix of all of those situations. And how I'm talking about it tonight is low quality jobs. Okay, so job judgment confusion, it can happen when you are, so I'm going to finish reading my definition. Job judgment confusion arises when individuals struggle to assess situations, make decisions, or evaluate their career paths effectively. This can stem from a lack of awareness, unclear career goals, or external pressures. And what I'm going to talk about now are the most common external pressures that I've seen from social workers, which are low quality jobs. So what are low quality jobs, Martha? I just kind of told you, but I'm going to give you a real formal definition, okay? Because I know y'all academics, you're real smart, right? You got your degree and everything. Low quality jobs are characterized by characteristics that negatively impact worker well-being and economic security. These jobs often feature low pay, lack of benefits, limited opportunities for advancement, unstable schedules, and poor working conditions such as lack of safety or autonomy. They can also be marked by a lack of respect, dignity, or opportunities for personal growth. All of those situations I've heard over the last 6 years from social workers, detailing where they've experienced one or multiple of those, right? So that is a definition of what low quality jobs are. If you were able to check off next to any one of those characteristics, your background is that you work low quality jobs, and you may be experiencing job judgment confusion. So I'm going to share with you today three beliefs, right, that I feel are caused because of job judgment confusion that I see a lot of social workers have. So the first one is, I kind of talked about it in the beginning. If the job sounds too good, it's probably not real. That's how a lot of y'all think. Like if you see something and you're like, they gonna pay me $100,000 to just do that, and I have to do 500 things in this case management job. A lot of you don't think it's real. You don't think it's possible. You don't think it's a real thing. Or you over intellectualize it so much so that you think that in order to qualify for that, you need to have another credential, right? So that's why a lot of social workers default to, before even learning how to effectively read a job post, a description, they automatically default to going back to school, getting multiple degrees, multiple certifications and things, because your belief, I'm talking about beliefs today, your belief is that if a job is going to pay me more than what I'm making in these low quality jobs, that must mean I need some more degrees. Right? I met a social worker a few months ago who's currently working on their PhD, right? And they have absolutely, like, the plan they had in place to use the degree, which they thought they wanted to teach in higher ed. Since being in their PhD program, they realized that ain't what they want to do. Because what I always tell people is higher ed is a whole nother world. And if you have never, stepped your toe into higher ed, I don't suggest that anyone goes and builds their whole life around being in higher ed if you've never like sampled it a little bit to know what that world is like. So this person, through their PhD program, they've sampled it, they've tasted the water, they're like, no, I don't want to be there. And so I say all that to say that this person was just like many social workers. Oh, social work collection, I know that's right, Marthea. Thanks, social work collection. So this person, like many social workers, before really doing sufficient due diligence, and what that looks like is career exploration, learning how to read a job post, understanding what are the requirements for a job. And that's what I teach inside of my career coaching program. They just set their sights out to go get a degree that they're now not going to use. So I wanted to use that as an example. And just a little known fact, all you need is a master's degree to teach in higher ed. Just a little, I'm dispelling myths tonight. So for a lot of people, when you're dealing with job judgment confusion, you think that if the job is too good, it's probably not real. And then you start naturally defaulting to overcompensating. Okay. But I want you to know that just because something is healthy doesn't mean it's fake, right? High quality jobs do exist. And you can get one, and it doesn't require you to overextend yourself or over-credential yourself or spend a lot. Another belief that a lot of social workers hold is that if a good quality job requires them to be in case management for 10 plus years, those are all misconceptions. What I always tell people, and this is based on me reading hundreds macro job posts well before I got on the internet, is that all you need at bare minimum for a macro job is a bachelor's degree, 2 years of case management experience, and a whole lot of passion. That's all you need, right? You don't need all of the other things. So if the job sounds too good, it's probably not real. That's a belief that a lot of people hold that really stems out of low quality jobs because you're just so used to being overworked and being everything to everybody. The second common misbelief that I see a lot of people hold is, and this is no surprise, there's been extensive research on this, but I see a lot of social workers suffering from this. And again, it's from the low quality jobs that you've had in the past, right? Where the people expect you to do everything under the sun. The second one is that you have to match 100% of the job description to apply. Okay. So I added that one to the list because this Sunday and the Sunday that just passed, am I in the coaching call with the micro to macro career accelerator cohorts? We are beginning the first phase. We begin the first phase of preparing them for their macro resume writing intensive. When you join my group career coaching program, you get a one-on-one 2-hour resume writing intensive where I take a deep dive into all of the experience that you have, and I teach you how to translate that and write a highly optimized resume that gets hits, right? My people get jobs. Right now we're at like 190 social workers that have landed macro jobs as a result of working with me inside of the accelerator. So one of the things that I was telling them, because I began to explain to them, this is just phase one, some of the transferable experiences that they have that makes them qualify for macro jobs right now, and how to effectively identify those when reading through a job post. And one of the things that I shared with them is that research shows that women job seekers believe when reading a job post that they have to match the bullets on the paper by at least 70 to 75%, right? So if there's 10 requirements on a job post, many women believe they need to match all 7. But I know from working with social workers who are super high achievers, many of you think you need to match that 100%. Because I've had people tell me that, like, I don't match that one, so I can't apply, right? So that is a common belief that is keeping you stuck in low quality jobs. And I attribute that to case management social work jobs that require you, again, to be the all-knowing human and do everything under the sun that's not even in your job duty. Whereas in macro jobs, right, they hire you for your specialization. So I wanted to bring that forth and say that you don't have to match a job description 100%. Research shows that on average, an employer is willing to consider you as a strong candidate if you match the bullets at like 45%. Research shows that men apply and they only match the bullets at 45%, but women won't apply unless they match 70% or more. But again, I increased that for high achieving social workers. You all hold the belief that you should match every bullet, and I want you to release that belief because it's keeping you stuck in low quality jobs. Why? Because the reality of it is, if you're coming from years of case management background experience, direct service, clinical therapy, right, you are going to match all of the bullets on another case management job. And if you're new here, I call everything case management. So that's clinical, non-clinical, medical social work, school social work. We all case managers. We see people, right? So if you're coming from a background where you've only worked those jobs and you only apply to those jobs, you naturally will match all of the bullets. Right? So if that is your process for screening yourself in to be qualified, this is how you're staying stuck in low quality jobs. Because if you then look at a high quality job and let's say you only match 6 bullets in your mind, right? We're talking about job judgment confusion. You will think you don't qualify, so you don't even attempt to apply for the high quality job. Drop a 1 in the chat if you're clear on that too, if you need a different example. So the second biggest misconception that a lot of social workers have that's keeping them stuck in low quality jobs is that they have to match the job description 100%. That's not true. Okay. The third misconception is that if the job looks better, it must require more of me. And I kind of talked about that in misconception 1. But I do want to talk about this dynamic here. In reality, low quality jobs are the ones that demand more of you, right? A lot of people don't realize, who've only worked in low quality jobs, is that the more you specialize and the more you move up the career ladder towards higher quality aligned employment, the less work you are required to do, because you are moving in that path because of specialization. Whereas when you're working in low quality jobs that require you to be a generalist, that require you to address all of the needs, that require you to serve multiple populations in multiple different settings and multiple different roles, right? That is requiring more of you. They require you to be on call. They require you to work on weekends. They require you to be the only one on the staff. They require you to be the only one triaging cases. The more generalized you are, right? The less specialized you are, the more you are required to work. I always like to give people I always like to talk about my call center days. When I worked in call center jobs before I started going back to school to get my degrees, I worked in call center jobs where I would answer on average like 110 calls a day, right? Where I was triaging everything under the sun. I was answering all of the questions. Versus when I got my first macro job, and I got that job because of my specialization in workforce development and helping people get jobs and designing programs around that. I sat at my office more than I did. I sat at my desk looking out my window at the ducks that I don't like ducks. Fun fact. Killer ducks. I don't like ducks because they chase after you. But I sat at my desk more often than I was in meetings. And I say that because I was a specialized director. So that didn't require me to be in every meeting that my organization had about the other happenings that were going on in our organization. They only tapped me in when it was time to talk about my specific pathway program. Right? So I say that to say that low quality jobs require more of you, but a lot of people have this belief that if the job pays more, if there's more autonomy, if there's a bigger job title, they're gonna overwork me. That's going to be too much work. I won't be able to do it. And again, that is derived out of your low quality jobs, because in low quality jobs, especially for social workers, I know for a fact that a lot of social workers try to escape the overworking, the focus on a lot of general work and case management by taking social work supervisor jobs. So for a lot of people, when they're seeing jobs with bigger titles, bigger salaries, bigger aligned work population and issue wise, they're equating it to social work supervisor jobs that do overwork you. But no, those jobs are bigger and they pay you more because you are an expert. You're a subject matter expert. Miller, did your specialization come with on the job work and you picked it up, or was there a specific certificate? No, I gained my experience through my professional development and becoming a subject matter expert while in my case management job. It was all derived from what I teach in my career coaching program. I got very clear on what I wanted my career to look like, what population and issue I wanted my work to support, what type of work I wanted to do day in and day out. And in my case management job, I began to build my professional brand around it. I didn't go and get a certification or take a training class, no. And those are all techniques that I teach inside of my career coaching program, how to specialize without going back to school and getting additional degrees and things like that. But it all starts with clarity. So good question, Miller. It all starts with clarity, and that's what I teach my coaching clients, how to specialize, because the truth is social workers, again, I talked about it earlier, are severely over-credentialed. A lot of people are, but social workers are. You all have multiple bachelor's degrees, multiple master's degrees that you don't use, multiple credentials that you don't use, and all of that is because you don't have clarity, right? I'll give you an example. If you don't know the type of job you want, you're going to think you need everything to be qualified for it. But if you know that the type of job I want only requires a master's degree and 3 years of experience, you then won't feel the need to overcompensate and go get another master's degree or get a doctoral degree, because you're clear. And that's a whole nother conversation, and maybe I'll come on later this week and talk about it. I talked about it for I think a few months ago, around the importance of moving off of facts instead of feelings. That will be the topic for this week. The importance of moving off of facts instead of feelings. So a lot of people, and this, Miller, you just brought up this conversation, so I'm giving it to you, okay? So consider this coaching. A lot of people move off facts instead of feelings. That's why I teach my coaching clients how to effectively read through a job description instead of just feeling like I need another degree, feeling that I need to get volunteer experience, feeling, right? We don't move off feelings, we move off facts. What does the job post say? Am I clearly understanding these requirements? And the truth is, a lot of social workers don't know how to effectively read a job description. So I covered the 3 biggest misconceptions that social workers have about macro social work jobs that's really keeping you stuck in low quality jobs. The first is, if the job sounds too good, it's probably not real. The second is that you have to match 100% of the job description to apply. The third is, if the job looks better, it must require more labor from you. When the truth is, no. As you progress up the career ladder, your output of work should decrease. Again, because you're moving in a lane of specialization. So instead of being the case manager that has to deal with all 50 issues, when you specialize, you only deal with one thing. And when you're working in a well-resourced organization, like macro organizations, they have really, really big budgets that are not tied to federal dollars. So they're not in jeopardy of losing their funding. They don't get governmental dollars. When you work for well-resourced, financially resourced organizations, when you work with organizations that are well-resourced human resource-wise, meaning they have other people who specialize in their thing, and then all of you bring your one thing together, and you don't have to be the Jack or Jill of all things, it requires less labor from you, and then your work becomes more aligned and more impactful, right? Because, and this is a conversation I had with someone the other day around like quality versus quantity. A lot of social workers are in jobs right now that just want quantity from you. So quality is diminished. It ain't even on the table. So that's why a lot of you feel a lot of value misalignment. You feel like, well, what am I doing if I'm really not helping the people? Is because you're there to meet the quantity and not quality. And macro jobs focus on quality, so they don't overwork you. So I want to say that you can fix job judgment confusion through self-reflection. That's why in my career coaching program, we do a lot of self-reflection. Every week I have my coaching clients do a self-reflection piece of homework, and it's not a one and done thing. It's something they do for the entire week to get clarity, to understand what they need to do. So you can fix job judgment confusion through self-reflection, seeking career guidance from me, and potentially, and also reevaluating your career aspirations. So a lot of social workers, job judgment confusion is initially caused because they are in careers or in positions or in specific social work jobs that they never wanted in the first place. And again, a lot of that comes from not having clarity. All of it comes from not having clarity, and then you let somebody convince you this is the only way. Not having clarity on what you want to do, not having clarity on the most effective way to get the job, not having real strategies and techniques to stay in the job, whatever the situation may be. But you can fix job judgment confusion. And so I want to name this for you all today. If you've been working in low quality jobs, it's no wonder your view of what's possible feels off. Again, that's job judgment confusion. And I help social workers unlearn it every day. Because if I continue to walk through the world thinking that the only jobs that I can get are like the jobs that I had as a call center representative, no, that wouldn't have been the career life that I wanted for myself. But a lot of people are in that position because they don't know what else is possible. And so I wanted to name that for you. So enrollment for the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator for Cohort 21, if you want to work with me inside of the accelerator, where I help you address all of this, unlearn all of these things, and start moving off of facts instead of feelings. Enrollment for Cohort 21 opens on August 17th. There's a link in my bio at macroandpaid.com. It's in the link in the bio. It's in the show notes and description box, where you can click the link macroandpaid.com, and you can learn more about my group career coaching program, the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator, and join the wait list. Also on August 12th, I'm having a webinar. The registration fee is only $25. In that webinar, I'm going to be showing you in black and white what experience you already have as a case manager, regardless of where you work, regardless of you being clinical, non-clinical, having a license, not having a license, regardless of you being a student, regardless of you being an OG social worker. I'm going to show you on paper what the how you already qualify for a macro social worker. And how I'm going to be doing that is by going over the top 3 experiences that every social worker has that qualifies them right now for a macro social work job. And I'm going to be showing you that against real live job posts. Right? Again, we move off facts, not feelings. So registration for Cohort 21 will be open on August 17th. The link is in the bio at macroandpaid.com. Click the link. Go look at some of the client testimonials. They're there. Go read about what we do inside of my career coaching program. The full curriculum is outlined for you there month by month. It's a 3-month program. And then register for the webinar on August 12th is $25. To start building the knowledge you need to address the deficits that you know you have. Because again, these are all easy fixes once you have the knowledge, once you have the information to be able to effectively analyze and assess a job opportunity for yourself. So I'll see you next time. Happy macro career.